What's up, everyone? Welcome into the F6 podcast. Cam Copeland here, co hosting with Alex Rogalin. And we're there, guys. We are there. We are done with week one, heading into week two of the NFL. All of the hype. It has now been, we've witnessed what actually happened week one. To a lot of surprises, some takeaways, and today we're just going to be talking about a bit of what happened week one, and then we're going to be going into week two, have a little matchup breakdown for you, and as always, we're going to be giving some upset predictions, some picks. So it's going to be a fun time, but I am just excited to talk about football after actually having witnessed it. Alex, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Cam. Yeah, we had real actual football. I know there's been college football. That's real football as well, but we've had some real NFL football. We got to recap week one. I wasn't like destroyed when the Chiefs lost on Thursday night. I was a little bit like, meh, they should have won that game, but I wasn't that down on them, especially missing both Kelsey and Chris Jones. And then I think as the weekend went on, honestly, I just felt better and better, about the Chiefs. So, overall, that looked like a lot of sloppy football to me. What did you think, Cam? I know it's week one, but man, the rust was showing, especially for some teams that hadn't played folks in the preseason. And I think it really showed in week one.
Well, everyone who got paid seemed to do pretty poorly, except for, I guess, Herbert. But, Lamar, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, man.
Ooh.
He just looked
terrible.
bad. Now, let me say I'm not worried even a little bit for their outlook the rest of the season. They're going to bounce back. But everyone just seemed to look a bit off. You could tell who's been putting in work over the offseason. And by everyone, I mean the Dallas defense.
Micah Parsons
this offseason. He did say he's trying to bulk up, become a real defensive end. Looks like he's there easily. But man, I'm with you. I think week one, it's always a bit sloppy. We build up all these expectations. We look into these guys, do so much research, and then the guys you're watching on game day, so much of it has to do with you're just watching how the team plays. You're watching the quarterback, the running backs, the wide receivers, right? All the fantasy options on offense. And then you have T. Higgins with 8 targets and no catches. And you have Drake London with 1 target and no receptions.
Zero fantasy points. I had him on my team. Ouch, that hurt.
And and then you have Puka Nacua leading the league in targets and looking awesome. And you never know what's going to happen week one. And you build it up in your mind that you know exactly what's going to happen because you've spent the last 6 months telling yourself exactly what's going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's sloppy, but onwards and upwards going on onto week two. But for week one, Alex, what were some of your biggest takeaways?
Yeah, I think a couple. I didn't expect if folks were listening to our earlier shows, I did not expect for the Bengals to come out of the gate hot. In fact, in our other shows, I had talked about concerns about Burrow coming back from that injury and not having preseason. So I did expect, I think, a little bit of a slow start for the Bengals, but I did not expect them to get basically destroyed by the Browns. That was not something I saw coming. So, especially with the timing of they announced Joe Burrow's contract as a part of I think they even did it during the Thursday night game. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, who knows. But that was kind of an interesting timing for announcing such a large contract. And then to have him play so poorly, he looked hurt to me. He did not look like he, had confidence and was really back and feeling better. And it just and that was the biggest surprise for me, honestly. Week one was, and then you had just to add on that, you have Ja'Marr Chase calling Myles Garrett an elf. I gotta say, man, that reminded me. Yeah, so before the game, Ja'Marr Chase came out and said that the Browns are just the elves, man. They're just something like that, or they're just the little elves. And Myles Garrett did not appreciate that comment, and it just reminded me of that scene where in Elf, where from the movie Elf, where the little midget guy is like, "Hey, call me an elf one more time," and he's like, "You're an angry elf." I'm not calling Myles Garrett an elf, but that was basically what he did. You called him an elf. Like, you probably shouldn't do that again because he just destroyed them. He was just toying with them. They didn't know what to do. Orlando Brown did not look comfortable in his new team. So not trying to throw down on the Bengals, but we Chief fans, we hear some things, and there were certainly some Bengal fans chirping after Thursday night. Not so much now, huh? That didn't look so hot there week 1 for the Bengals. So anyway, that was biggest surprise for me. What did you think about that?
Well, I'll tell you, the Browns defense looked legit. I mean, we've been saying this offseason, if they can have someone reliable or at least a good rotation for pass rushing across from Myles Garrett, then this defense will just elevate to the next level because he's been the only guy putting on the pressure for the last several years. He's been doubled a higher percentage than I believe anyone else in the NFL with near his snap counts. And that impacts the defense, the secondary as well, because, the more time to throw. And Zadarius Smith looked good. He and Myles Garrett each had 6 pressures this game, which is, the highest on the week was 8 by anyone. And so the secondary looked great. And it just looked, the Bengals offense in this game looked completely outclassed from top to bottom. Not saying that'll happen again next time they meet. I'm sure Burrow will shake off that rust, get a little more rehab, hopefully. And, it's going to be a fun season because the Browns could take this division, right? Where it
does seem wide open.
We've been saying, the Ravens or the Bengals. And then we were both like, you know what? The Steelers will probably be better than people think. And we just left out the Browns.
Yep. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And I know we'll get to our upset picks later, but that one didn't look so good for me, but we'll little sneak peek there. Everybody, we'll get to those later, but yeah.
Now, who did look good? Jimmy G, for the first time in his career. He looked incredible.
17 points, not the greatest show on turf, but
yeah, but he was accurate. He had good timing. He had the 3rd highest PFF passer grade on the week. He looked comfortable. And I don't know if it's a style of offense or if he just sort of, he thinks he's 23 years old again and can get that second year bump that we usually see from players. But he looked, I think this team could be better than a lot of people expect. Now their defense is not good.
Mm-hmm.
It just pretty much all around. They have Max Crosby, who looked like an animal, as he always does. But I think some of the Raiders games could actually be interesting. Now, I had no desire to watch the Raiders Broncos last week. None. It was that, and then the Tennessee New Orleans game. No desire. That was one of the worst games of football I've seen. If that game wasn't week 1, I wouldn't have watched it. It was so bad. And
honestly,
I feel sorry for Tennessee fans because
the Titans might be a tough watch this year. They I think that some of the offenses just looked anemic, in week 1. And now, some of them, like I agree, like the Bengals are going to shake out of it, right? No concerns with them. I'm sure they'll be fine. Give them a couple weeks. But man, the Titans, Tannehill has just regressed so much from where he was back in, he helped carry them to the AFC Championship back in 2019. And since then, it has just been downhill. And they just look like they're going to be a tough watch this year.
Well, we might see Will Levis this year then.
Mm-hmm.
We might just see him come in after the bye or something. If Tannehill looks like he did, we're going to see him, definitely.
At some point. Yeah, because they're going to want to know what they have, for sure.
Yeah. Now, we do have to talk about the Detroit-Kansas City game a little bit more. Because, we broke that one down last week, and you're obviously, for anyone listening and doesn't know, he's diehard Chiefs fan over there.
That's right.
And, there were some things that I saw that game, that I was happy with because I was right about it in our breakdown. And I was thinking, okay, I said Detroit would run all over Kansas City using outside zone. Now they had over 5 yards per carry on outside runs. They did a good split of zone and gap, a little more gap, but mostly even. said Amon-Ra St. Brown would carve up the soft zone underneath. What I was wrong about is that Detroit would be playing 12 against 10 because they hired Kadarius Toney as an extra man for their team. I did not take that
Unreal,
into
man.
consideration.
Unreal.
I know people have been talking about Kadarius Toney now for it. Today's, well, what is today? Wednesday.
Yeah.
And so it's been almost a week, but man, he
that was terrible.
He only ran 11 routes that game. He only ran 11 routes the entire game. And, Rashee Rice ran 12 routes. Sky Moore, MVS, each ran over 30. They were the primary two. And Kadarius Toney had more of an impact on this game than anyone else.
Yeah, no, it was. I agree. Yeah, a couple of things surprised me about that game. Just to do a quick recap. I was a little surprised that Detroit didn't run the ball more because they were fairly effective. I thought Gibbs looked good, man. He's got some burst. He's got some burst. And he looks like he's really going to be a weapon for them. So I thought that was impressive. They didn't run the ball. Really, all in all, I thought the Chiefs defense played fine. They held them to 14 points. And that was without Chris Jones. I thought that the defensive line for the Chiefs actually generated a decent amount of pressure, considering that they didn't have Chris Jones in there. And so overall, I was impressed. I thought that the Chiefs did fairly well. Yeah, they certainly, St. Brown definitely had some really impactful catches there on running against the zone. There was that, but I thought on the offensive side, they looked very disjointed, which is unusual for a Mahomes and Reed team. But I also sort of understand it. When you think about the timing of Kelsey's injury, they probably had the game plan for the most part installed. He got hurt on Monday night? I think it was Monday or Tuesday. So by that point, they're getting close to like walkthroughs. They've already installed the core game plan by that point. And so it was sort of like, it really did look like the last couple days had been sort of like maybe trying to install almost a new game plan, with an expectation Kelsey wasn't going to be there. Because, if you go back and look at the all 22, there's multiple times where receivers were running into each other. They were running the entirely wrong routes. Or they were like running, two guys straight into a safety that can cover both of them. So like overall, definitely some guys, made, definitely weren't I think there on the mental side of it. So, but Kadarius Toney, that's probably the worst receiver game I've ever seen. Honestly, it would have been better if he would have just not played. I think the Chiefs would have won the game if he would have not played. Or if he even would have just batted every ball down, because one of them ended up in a pick six. Which was not Mahomes' fault. He was in stride. It was just, he just lost his confidence. And yeah, that was pretty ugly. But, I think long-term, the Chiefs need him. They're going to need him. He's one of the, as frustrating as he is when he has a bad game, he's one of the more talented guys when he's healthy. So, the Chiefs, if they want to make a repeat as a Super Bowl champ, they're going to need everybody to play up to the highest, talent and potential they have. And that includes Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, and Toney, he did look slower, right? He looked like I heard in a podcast earlier this week, so it looked like running like someone wearing 4 knee braces, which is might be accurate. Because we talked beforehand pretty extensively about the Chiefs over multiple podcasts now, but his run after catch is just absurd. He's one of the most fun guys to watch with the ball in his hands, I'd say, in the entire NFL. And now all the fans are calling for him to be cut after this one game. He's just
let's pump the brakes a little on that. I don't want him to be cut, but I will say this: I don't. As far as expectations go, I think that Chiefs fans need to understand, and this would apply to fantasy owners. I don't think there's any way that Kadarius Toney is going to be like a traditional wide receiver one. It's not happening. And you and I talked about that earlier, Cam, even in one of our other shows, is that, the best thing that the Chiefs can do is to deploy him in impact scenarios where they really need, that athleticism. They need a big impact play with a high efficiency, but not something that's going to have him out there all the time.
Yeah,
I was encouraged. I was encouraged with Rashee Rice. I thought he had some good routes. He looked like he did have some drops. So I think he had 2 drops, maybe 1. So the drops were, everybody was dropping the ball, honestly. But I thought that he had some good routes and kind of hopefully getting that first touchdown in his first game will be a big motivator. I think we'll see more of Rashee Rice going forward.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm looking right here. It says Rashee Rice had 0 drops week 1. Maybe
Maybe
he
I'm probably
maybe
there
you
was
watched
maybe that was
your
Sky Moore I'm
definition.
thinking of, or somebody else.
Probably. Yeah,
Yeah.
your definition of a drop might be different from the
Anytime
NFL's.
for a Chiefs fan, it's anytime Mahomes has an incomplete pass, it is a
It's a
drop.
drop. Yeah,
That's it.
makes
That's
sense.
the only plausible explanation.
Yeah, and now just to bring up our little bet we had preseason of Rashee Rice versus Sky Moore. Sky Moore had about triple the routes run of Rashee Rice and did nothing with them.
Did
So
not
I'm a
look
little
good.
scared for my side of things. But
I mean, MVS too. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like,
oh,
I
yeah.
just wait, where does he go? Like, I just don't get it, because he's out there running routes, but like, if you look on the screen, is he like, did he run so fast he's not on the screen anymore? Because I swear, like, I look at the snap counts and he always has a high snap count, but I he just rarely makes an impact on the game, or I don't even remember him hardly being out there. So I don't know what
Yeah,
routes
so-
he's running, but
so-
he's just like invisible man.
So Amon-Ra St. Brown's average depth of target in that game was 7.1, as expected. MVS's average depth of target was 23. And
Well,
that's target. That's not that's not run after catch or anything. So he is over 20 yards downfield on average for his
So Andy Reid is like,
targets.
hey MVS, if you
Go.
just run a fly route every time, we'll give you a cheeseburger.
Or a couple $1 million. I think 11. But
Yes.
all right. So moving on, just a couple more things I want to bring up from week 1. I wanted to look into a few stats to bring up some superlatives for some guys who should get some recognition. I'm going to start quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. He had the highest EPA of any quarterback on the week. And last year, people don't remember, he was very good in the games he played. He had, for the whole year, he was second in EPA only to Patrick Mahomes on the year last year. So he looked good. He looked really good. And people keep saying, noodle arm Tua. Like, I don't know why they call him that, because he had the highest average depth of target of any quarterback on the entire week. He is chucking it downfield to his guys, to Tyreek mostly.
To Tyreek, yeah.
But Waddle's there too, and he's a very, very good player. But so yeah, Tua, excellent. Now, Pro Football Focus has a metric I like, which is elusiveness, and it basically takes it's a calculated field of missed tackles forced. So with the ball in your hand, and let's see, missed tackles forced and extra yardage gained after contact.
Can I guess? Can I guess who I?
Yeah.
I mean, just on the eye test, I think Breece Hall, man, that guy was like
number 1.
Did I get it right? Let's go.
Number 1.
Man, he looked good coming
He's
back from that
good.
injury, and we had talked about him, and he didn't jump off the screen as fast as like other guys. Like Gibbs looked fast, right?
He's number 2.
But like, really, there you go.
Yep.
Gibbs looked fast, but like I thought Breece, he didn't look as like bursty, if that's the right word, but man, he was getting up to speed and he was out running folks, and he looked great. I was really happy for the Jets to see him back and healthy.
Yeah, so 2 studs up there, and then number 3 is Tyjae Spears. So he actually was great in pass protection and out-snapped Derrick Henry. So I don't know what they're doing over there, but they send him on some deep routes. They didn't connect.
Did they move him out, or did he was running from the backfield?
No, like
routes?
deep wheel routes and whatnot.
Oh.
It was a little odd, but anyway, I liked him coming out. So now a couple other things. Highest graded PFF graded tight end week 1 was Kyle Pitts. I just want to bring that up because everyone has been hating on Kyle Pitts. He's still a good player. He's just in an awful situation with having Desmond Ridder as his quarterback and Arthur Smith as his coach. And then highest EPA for wide receivers, Brandon Ayuk, because he was
makes sense.
phenomenal, even higher than Tyreek. So those are some fantasy relevant guys. Well, Pitts wasn't really fantasy relevant, but overall guys for this week. And then on the defense, I just want to bring up 2 guys. There were only 2 guys with over 10 or more pass rush snaps with a 40% pass rush win rate or higher. One on the edge, Rashawn Gary, no surprise there. And then David Onyemata, interior defensive lineman for the Falcons. So looking good for
Would not have known that. No.
my Falcons pick. Yeah, no one would have. Now he was going against Carolina, and their interior is bad. I think they have Chandler Zavala as one of their guards, who's I think he's third or fourth round rookie. He was good in in college, but rough start. So a couple of shout outs there. Anything else you want to cover in week 1, Alex?
Yes, one other quick question for you, Cam, is looking at the first year starters. So that means that would be, well, I know there's a lot of them at quarterback, but I was thinking specifically of the 3 rookie guys. So Richardson, Young, and CJ Stroud. So looking at those 3 guys, and then if you pull in Howell and you pull in Ritter, I don't know if those guys are, I mean, Ritter played a game last year, but anyway, of those 5 guys, at least those are the first 5 that come into my head. Which one impressed you the most?
I don't. Okay, 2 guys. I'm trying not to be biased when I say Sam Howell. It came to mind first, and the main reason is 1, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Desmond Ritter just didn't look like NFL quarterbacks this week. I know it's hard for rookies. The first 2 guys, Ritter he just hasn't looked the part yet. Hopefully he can step up a bit. But Hal, he had some great flashes. He had a couple incredible plays, I thought, where he scrambled outside the pocket, kept his eyes downfield, hit guys on the move. And then of course he took a lot, I think 6 sacks. He had some rookie-esque plays that are expected, but I think he showed what he needed to show. And then Anthony Richardson, he had a rushing touchdown. He had a passing touchdown. He had some good plays as well. He wasn't great by any means, but I think he also, like Sam Howell, showed flashes that should make Colts fans happy because he was considered to be a lot more raw than CJ Stroud and Bryce Young coming out, right? That was this whole thing. Can he actually play quarterback? People were saying. I thought he was a better passer than people gave him credit for because he actually tried to pass. He wasn't a run-first, run-happy guy. But I think he looked good, and I think he's going to improve a lot throughout the season.
Yeah, I like that. I actually thought Richardson, I was impressed. I know, like you said, he made some mistakes, and he's a young guy, but the athleticism, the arm strength, like he's got those things. He's got the tangibles for sure. And so here's my plea to Colts: please don't ruin him. The Colts are just lately have been such a poor run organization. Don't ruin this guy. Give him a chance. Give him something to work with. Give him some good coaching. And in a few years, I think he looked, of athletically, he looks like he belongs in the NFL. We'll see if he develops into anything, but I mean, he looks like he belongs. So
he looks like he could play tight end. I mean, the dude's an athletic monster
for sure.
So he belongs for sure. Whether it's at linebacker or quarterback is yet to. All right, let's move on to week 2. Why don't we start with a matchup? I think Alex and I were talking. We're going to be for now breaking down one matchup each week, a little bit more in depth than the rest, just to sort of talk about the teams that are either look exciting, a matchup that's fun to talk about, to see how the schemes compare, see how they dive into how they'll actually play against each other, as opposed to just talking about who the players are, right? So this week, maybe not the most fun for a lot of people, but we talked about the Chiefs last week, talking about the Commanders this week. So I wanted to talk about the Denver Broncos and Commanders game. So I think it's going to be a closer matchup than a lot of people would necessarily expect. What do you think, Alec? What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah. When we were thinking about this game, I would say we touched on it briefly earlier, but the Raiders beat the Broncos 17-6 on a late touchdown this in week 1, or 17-16, excuse me. And it did make me laugh because I think last year the Broncos averaged 16 points a game. So it was just like, it just made me laugh because it's like the more things change, the more things stay the same. So Sean Payton comes in, and there's and I mean, I thought Russ actually, for the highlights I saw, because that was my dumpster fire game last week. I said I wouldn't watch it. I didn't, but I did watch some highlights, and I thought actually Russ looked a little bit more mobile, a little bit more twitchy maybe than he looked last year. But it also made me laugh at the same time because, Broncos fans got to be so upset. Not only it's losing to the Raiders, but then watching that offense slog to 16 points. That was probably concerning if you're a Broncos fan. So and I know we'll get into it, but my initial thoughts are, I guess I'm surprised that, let's see, the line is favoring the Broncos. Is that right? Broncos by 4 is the line. Is that right?
I am trying to scan the teams. Give me just a second.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
So if it is Broncos by 4,
3.5 right now.
That surprises me a little bit, honestly. Because what do they? So if it's Broncos by 4 and the Broncos only score 16 points a game, then that means they think it's going to be a 16-12 game. And I gotta say, I think that the Commanders are going to score more than 12. So there's some
39. So
okay,
yes,
there we go.
Low score.
Yeah, but anyway, so I do think that it has potential to be a good game. Probably more of a defensive game than some of the other things in the matchup next week. But those are some of my quick thoughts. But break it down for us. Where do you think are some advantages or some key matchups to look at?
All right, so I'm going to start with Washington. Some things I saw right now. Bieniemy definitely brought over something unique from Kansas City that was not there last year. Right, he brought their zone run scheme. Brian Robinson had the second most zone run attempts in the league. They are a pass-first team. They ran on 1st and 10 only 42% of the time, whereas last year it was about 55%. And now Kansas City last year was 47%. So in the right direction, definitely, having only 42% of 1st and 10s being run plays. But I'll say on the inside zone, a lot of the Washington offensive linemen looked lost. It looked like they didn't understand their assignments. Now, Leno, their left tackle, looked great this game. Whether it's a matchup against Arizona or he's actually improved as a player, is yet to be seen. He looked fantastic. Sam Cosmi looked decent, right guard. But everyone else, they just looked a little bit lost. And so I think that, Bieniemy came over and wanted to implement his scheme. And I think throughout the season, he's going to sort of tamper back a little bit and make sure he's using the players to their greatest strengths, use what he has, and, on more implementing his scheme than anything that we've used in prior years, obviously. But, he'll learn to play to the players once he spends more time with them. So Sam Howell looked decent. Not great, not bad, not too much to say there. But it was a little bit of that, West Coast offense that we were expecting. Now on the defensive side, the biggest surprise to me was that Benjamin St-Juste. He's our only tall cornerback. He's 6'3", and he was playing in the slot. He was a slot cornerback. Forbes and Fuller, the other, first round pick Forbes. And then Fuller is 5'11", I think, maybe 6 feet on a good day. And they were playing on the outside exclusively. So they're all talented players. St-Juste is yet to be seen if he's actually a good player. He's proven that he's at least fine. But we drafted a cornerback in the first round for a reason. So one other thing about the defense, it was only 2 linebackers played the entire game. There was never a play with more than 2 linebackers on the field. There were many plays with only 1, which I thought was interesting. So I know we're a base nickel, but really keeping those defensive backs on the field is something that we wanted to do. How does this match up with Denver? Well, Greg Dulcich is now out. Jerry Jeudy might not come back, right? It's Russ passing the ball to Cortland Sutton, to Lil Jordan Humphreys had the second most routes run on the team. And
Samaje Perine, who is their leading receiver, right, with 37 yards.
Yeah, you know,
Ouch.
Javonte is still recovering. He
Mhm.
took what 13
13 rushes in
runs.
game
Yeah.
1. Yep.
So, but it seems like I feel like the Washington defense is just going to outclass this offense. Now, the defense as a
Mhm.
unit, the Washington defense didn't look that great in my opinion. It on paper they were pretty darn good because they played Arizona. But watching them, they were a bit they weren't in sync the whole time. It was a bit disjointed from what the line was doing with what the linebackers were doing, the defensive backs were doing. Cam Curl looked awesome the whole game, which is fun to see. Safety, but besides that, I think it'll take a few more weeks before this defense really congeals and starts working better as a unit.
Mm.
Now, on the other side of things, you know, the passing offense for Washington has, you know, they have McLaurin, they have Dotson, they have Curtis Samuel, who's involved. We love our 11 personnel, so we can keep all 30 of them on the field. And Denver, you know, they have Surtain, obviously, but
Mhm.
if he shadows McLaurin, even if he doesn't, he's probably just going to end up playing one side because that's what he typically does the whole game. Their second cornerback, Mathis, he allowed 8 receptions on 9 targets for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns. He played horribly, and that was against Jacoby Myers lining up on the outside,
Mm.
which historically he hasn't done. So I think that Washington's going to be able to pass on them. I do think it'll be a little hard to run on them because Denver does have a good run defense, and our zone looks sloppy at best. So it is going to be a slower game. I think the line, the over under 39 is appropriate, but you know, I do think ultimately Washington takes this by 2 points, by 4 points, something that range, but it'll be enough. So those are my thoughts on the matchup specifically.
Yeah, I like that. I'll pick Washington for this game too if we're picking somebody. I do think that I just don't I just have a hard time seeing Denver scoring very many points. I mean, like we talked about with their injuries. I mean, where's Russ going to throw the ball? I mean, he's going to roll out of the pocket and just continue to throw it to his running backs that are in the flat, and ask them to juke 6 guys. I don't know. That's tough. I just don't see Denver scoring very many points. And I think in a low scoring affair, I like the offensive weapons better, on the Commanders. And I think that we should see, I think Sam Howell, he made, like you said, I mean, I thought he made some plays in week 1 that showed potential. And then he made some plays that, he'll want to grow from, and learn. And I think that will come with time. So I am expecting a slightly better performance out of him. And so I do think that Washington will win this one. And then another kind of like random stat that these random stats always kind of crack me up because it's like, is this really applicable or not? But all time, Denver is leading, the Washington 8-7 in their matchups. But then the last 5 matchups have flip-flopped every time. So Denver won in 21, and then Washington in 17, Denver in 13, Washington in 09, Denver in 05. So just by flip-flopping back and forth, then it's like a done deal. Washington should win and tie the series up 8-8. So I have no impact on this game, but it makes me laugh. So here we go. The pattern says Washington wins.
Yeah. Now, just to not be homer for a moment, how Denver wins this game, their offensive line was good, and they picked up Mike McGlinchey, who's from San Francisco. So offseason, he's a good run blocking right tackle. And how they win is by having breakaway run play. They ran the ball a surprising amount. They on 1st and 10, they ran over 68% of the time, even with Javonte coming off of injury and Samaje Perine as their best yards per carry rusher. And I think they're going to keep running a lot. And now, if they get past this defensive line of Washington, I don't know Chase Young's status either, so it might be Smith Williams on the other side of Montez Sweat. If they get past him, Cody Barton played horribly last week, the middle linebacker, and he was the linebacker who was on for every snap. So it was, smaller packages of smaller being the size of the players, right? So many defensive backs there. I think they might be able to break away a few big runs, maybe get a 30-yard score once or twice, and that would seal it. I do not see them winning this game through the air.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
All right, man. You want to get into our upset picks for the week?
Yeah, let's do it. And just to recap for everybody, we are going to keep track. We'll keep our running score, kind of keep records for us. So as a recap of week one, Cam did have a successful picking Miami over the Chargers. So he's 1-0. I mentioned it earlier, but my pick was very bad. So I picked Pittsburgh over San Francisco. And that looked really bad. So Pittsburgh just got absolutely destroyed. And even San Francisco kind of took their foot off the pedal, honestly, or they could have ran that score up even more. So yeah, don't know if I'm not feeling so good about picking Pittsburgh again. So that makes my record 0-1. So Cam, why don't you kick it off for us for this week for week 2 upset of the week? Who you got?
All right. Well, I am going to take Atlanta this week over Green Bay. Currently, Green Bay is favored, and the bets have been swinging in Green Bay's direction. It came out close to even, and where if you bet on Atlanta to win, you'd make your return on investment exactly what you bet. Now the odds are more favorable; they just keep going up. I believe they're I've seen plus 120, and I saw throughout just today a climb from plus 105 to 120. So everyone's betting on Green Bay to win this one, but here's why I think it's going to be Atlanta. Now, I've been publicly very big on Atlanta and Miami this year, and it was nice watching Miami and Atlanta and Washington all win week 1. It was a good week, not so much for my fantasy teams, but good football week. And Green Bay had Jordan Love, who looked good. He did look good, but he had 3 touchdowns, but he only had a 55.6% completion percentage. His adjusted completion percentage wasn't much higher at 63. He had the highest touchdown percentage in the league, so the percentage of his passes becoming a touchdown. So that number's on to regress pretty quickly. And Atlanta's going to slow down the game. I think they're going to dominate in time of possession. They had debatably the best run blocking offensive line week 1. And Green Bay, now they had 9 defensive linemen, 9 with between 25 and 41 snaps. They were just cycling guys in constantly. And 3 of them are the rookies, right? They have Lucas Van Ness, they have Colby Wooden, they have Carl Brooks, and they played all of them, which was really fun to see because I like all those guys. And they played almost evenly. And they played almost evenly with their starters, with Rashawn Gary, and I just think that it's going to be a little too much for them to handle, with Atlanta just shoving it down their throat, running it down their throats with Bijan Robinson and, of course, Tyler Algier, who also looked fantastic week 1. So I think it's going to be – I think Love's going to regress slightly. Now, Atlanta isn't the best defense, but it has improved from last year. It's better than Chicago's, who Green Bay went against week 1, especially on the defensive line. If Anyamadi can keep it up, if Ebiketie can come back, and have a good second year, it's they're better than Chicago. Chicago like a dumpster week 1, but we can talk about that a little more another time. But yeah, that's why I think Atlanta will just outmatch them. They'll keep the ball, and they just have overall more talented players on both sides of the ball.
I like that pick, Cam. And, and it makes me wonder, how many weeks into the season do we have to wait before we change picks? Because I did pick the Bears to win the NFC North, and wow, does that pick look bad. So if I could change that one, might have to take a change there. So, like for those of you that have followed this podcast with Cam and I, we'll own it up. We'll eat crow if we make a bad call. We're man enough to admit it. So I was trying to think on someone going from worst to first, and so I picked the Bears. But yeah, it's looking pretty bad now. But I like that. I agree. I think that the Falcons defense will be better than the Bears, and so I think it'll be a much more maybe real test for Love I wouldn't say like it's not certainly not an elite test. It's not like the Niners defense or something. But it is going to be a better defense of matchup, and so yeah, I think that's a good pick. No concerns there.
Right, man,
So
who's
for
your pick?
me, I am going to kind of looking at the last few years and then of how the Bengals have started the season. And we already touched on their week 1 game, so I don't have to recap that again. But I'm going to pick the Ravens over the Bengals. So right now that line is at 3.5 for the Bengals. The over-under is at 46. That's at least coming from Fox Sports. So I think that's that might be moving, but anyway. So with 3.5, I like the Ravens in that game. I didn't think they looked particularly explosive against the Texans, but I also don't think the Texans are. I think the Texans are going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. So it's not surprising. It took a little bit of time. Of course, they did have J.K. Dobbins go down with an injury. He's done for the season, which is really a bummer for his career as well as for fantasy owners. So that is a bummer. But even with that, I think that if Burrow is still hurt in the way that impacted his performance in week 1, I don't see that getting drastically better in week 2. And so I really think this is a good opportunity for Baltimore to try to jump on and get a couple games in between them and the Bengals early. So I don't have I don't have a crystal ball certainly, but I feel pretty good about this pick. I will be I'm thinking the Bengals are going to take down. I'm sorry, the Ravens are going to take down the Bengals. But do you agree with that, or do you think I'm crazy?
I don't think you're crazy, especially from what we saw last week. Now, if you recall, how many years ago, 2 or 3, where Aaron Rodgers came out and it was one of the worst quarterback performances you'll ever see, and they got slaughtered, and then I believe they won the division. The next week they came back and were just phenomenal. Do you remember what I'm talking about? That was like 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. So
wasn't it like the Saints or something? I don't know. Somebody destroyed them in week 1. I thought it was the Saints. Maybe not.
Maybe. But I'm thinking Joe Burrow might do that. He'll say, I don't know what happened, but it's not ever going to happen again. And, he pulls himself back up by the bootstraps and just throws it all over the Ravens. The line right now is at for over under is 45.5. I've seen a lot of people betting the under, which I don't understand. I bet I guess it makes sense from watching them week 1. I take the over on that one. I think this could be a high-scoring game with some really explosive weapons on both sides of the ball.
Yep. So there you have it, everybody. Yeah. So there you have it, everybody. So those are our upset picks of the week. Other than that, Cam, what are some other games in week 2 that stand out to you? What are you going to be watching in week 2?
All right. So I chose 3 games for the team favorite to cover the spread. Last week, I don't have them in front of me. I know I didn't do well. I believe 2 of them are wrong, potentially all 3. So it's a new week coming back to you. Better picks this time around. Now, excuse me, I have to take Miami over New England. I think New England's defense looked very good against Philadelphia. I do think Miami, Tyreek Hill is just too good. And their Jalen Waddle is just too good as a number 2. And they're just going to be able to outscore them. Right now, the line's only 2.5 points. So I'd say if you think Miami's going to win this, they are known for their explosive plays. That's kind of.
Oh, we lost Cam. So I guess I'll pick up for him. So games I will be looking at, we'll give him a chance to get back on here. Looks like he was having some network problems. So the games I'm going to be watching, I know he just started talking about Dolphins Patriots. That's a Sunday night football game. Certainly going to be probably going to be a shootout. I will also be, obviously we got the Chiefs and Jaguars as a Chiefs fan. I think that's going to be a good one. That's going to be a rematch of the AFC. The AFC, I guess it was the wild card round or divisional round last year. And of course the Chiefs won. That was the game that Mahomes got hurt. So it'll be exciting to see. And of course, Calvin Ridley is a new addition for the Jaguars that certainly wasn't on that team last year. So, we're not going to break that one down. I do expect the Chiefs to win that game. They will have Chris Jones and Travis Kelce back for that game. So I really think that will be I think it'll be close throughout. I think the Chiefs will pull away there at the end. But that's certainly a game that I'll be watching. A couple other key matchups that we have. We've touched on quite a few of these. I do see the Raiders and the Bills playing. That's another 1:00 game on CBS. I expect the Buffalo to really take care of business. I think that obviously Josh Allen had a poor performance there in week 1. Certainly cost his team. And, I think the thing that surprised me is that, he just hasn't looked the same since Brian Daboll left and, went and become the head coach of the Giants. So we'll see if that is just I don't know if last year was a little bit of an off year for him. But, I think that Brian Daboll I think he kind of helps reel Josh Allen in. It reminds me a little bit of like Holmgren with Brett Favre, right? Brett Favre, when he had those back-to-back MVP seasons, he had the high explosive plays with kind of Holmgren knew how to reel in some of the turnover reckless side. And so I think that in the same manner, let me get Cam back in here.
Hello. How long was I out?
There we go. Just a couple minutes. Yeah, you dropped. You were in the process of going over the Dolphins-Patriots game, and then we lost you.
Okay. All right. Well,
but you're sounding good now. So in the meantime, I was given a little bit of an overview of the Chiefs, Jags, and Raiders-Bills games.
Nice. Keep it going.
But yeah, so just to wrap up there, I was just saying I expect to see a bounce back game from the Bills. That was a pretty poor performance by Josh Allen in particular. And like you said earlier, Cam, the Raiders defense is Max Crosby and a bunch of nobodies. I'm just kidding. I don't know who most of them are anyway. But other than Max Crosby, I don't think the Raiders have much on the defensive end. So I expect to see the Bills go somewhat scorched earth, trying to make up for that disappointing loss against the Jets on Monday Night Football. So and that line's pretty big. That line is 9.5, and that doesn't surprise me. And I don't know if I would lay on the Bills to cover that because this is an NFL game. And who knows, Jimmy G might find a way to keep it close, but I do think the Bills are much better and should have no problem taking care of the Raiders.
Yeah. Jimmy G looked better than Josh Allen last week. That's for sure. Josh Allen, fun stat. During our initial preview to week 1, I was looking up some Jared Goff stats because I recalled he had a good amount of turnover worthy plays last year. And despite not having many interceptions, Jared Goff had 24 turnover-worthy plays, which is more than Justin Fields, who had 21. And Mahomes, Rodgers had 18. Burrow had 16. Herbert and Hurts had 13 and 11. Like, these are lower numbers. Jared Goff seems bad. And then Josh Allen comes in with 29 turnover-worthy plays last year when he was supposed to be incredible. So, he doesn't take what the defense gives him. He chucks it, and it works a lot of time because he has Stephon Diggs. So
he's just reckless, man. And not in a good way. Like 2 of those interceptions, one of them was okay. He missed a little bit. It happens. But 2 of those interceptions were like YOLO balls. They were just like, he was just like, yeah, I'm just going to chuck this thing back into double coverage and, we'll see what happens. When you're a superstar quarterback, you can't do that. And I was saying while you were rejoining Cam, I think that he's been impacted by the loss of Brian Daboll. I think Daboll really had, helped kind of maybe rein in some of those tendencies and keep the explosiveness. And without Daboll last year and one game into this year, he looks reckless with the football. And so I think he really misses Brian Daboll.
Yeah. And you saw what Daboll did with Daniel Jones last year. So, all right. Well, I just wanted to touch on the games that I was talking about when I got kicked, probably by Alex, if you got tired of me speaking. But so just two other games that I would take for the team to cover the spread would be the Chargers over Tennessee, because it's only a 3-point spread. Now they're on the road, but Chargers looked explosive. They are probably going to be getting their rookie Quentin Johnson more and more involved as the season progresses. They have a Mike Williams who is healthy. Debatably, he's always kind of in limbo for health, but it's an explosive offense, and Tennessee just looked putrid. Their defense was fine, but the Saints didn't look good on offense. So I just think they can cover the 3-point spread. And then Cleveland over Pittsburgh, again, a team on the road, but it's only a 2.5-point spread. And Pittsburgh's offensive line got demolished by San Francisco, who might have the best defensive line, or at least the best pass rush in the NFL, debatably, right? But Cleveland's defense looked solid this last week. They look like a top 5 unit based on their performance against the Bengals, and I think they're gonna be putting Kenny Pickett on his rear end a lot more than the Steelers want. And with Deontay Johnson out, it's going to be Allen Robinson on lining up across from George Pickens. It's going to be Calvin Austin, right? These aren't superstars. Maybe Allen Robinson once upon a time, but certainly not in the last few years. So those are the teams I think are going to cover the spread. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Cleveland performs against Pittsburgh, because I think they've taken a step forward this offseason, and it would be fun for Browns fans if they can actually accomplish something for once.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's true. It has been rough sledding being a Browns fan. Another one, Cam, I want to get your thoughts on. I think that the over-under for the Jets-Cowboy game seems high to me. I would feel like I would take the under on that because
38.
Yeah, I know it's low, but man, it's like, is either team gonna? This just looks to me like a 13-6 game. I don't know. I don't trust Will. I don't think Wilson is going to be able to do much against that Dallas defense. Looked, I mean, I know that it was against the Giants, but that Cowboy defense looked dominating, and they didn't even look like they let off the gas that second half. And the Jets defense certainly looked excellent against the Bills. Some of those throws by Josh Allen were, self-inflicted there. But even then, the Jets, I thought their defense looked certainly like a top unit. So I don't trust Dak Prescott scoring a bunch of points against the Jets, and nor do I trust Wilson. I'll be shocked if Wilson scores a touchdown against the Cowboys. So I got that one as an under. What do you think?
Now, have you considered the fact that they're going to have 3 special teams touchdowns?
Again, no, I wasn't considering that.
So I would go the under. I do not like betting. I usually don't do over unders because the game script can go either way unless I feel like I understand the matchup better than the general population considerably. But if you're going to bet on this, you take the under. Anything can happen in the NFL, but Zach Wilson is going to get sacked a lot. He's going to throw interceptions. It's what he does best. He's going to miss his running backs on wheel routes 5 yards away from him. It's also what he does best. And then these defenses might be the 2 best in the NFL. It seems right now that there's a handful of juggernaut defenses and then a teardrop, and then a bunch of middle defenses, and then a teardrop, and then putrid defenses. It's like they're not as many layers as usual. So I'm looking forward to seeing these defenses compete, even if I'm not really looking forward to seeing the offenses play against them. We'll need some more data points to see who actually pulls ahead as the consensus best defense. But these are probably 2 of the top 3 right here.
And with week 1 performance, you'd probably put the Browns then, right, as one of the other elite defenses.
Yeah, they were so solid.
Yeah,
I would. Now the game was in the rain. Also, you gotta remember that. But
yeah, true.
They played well. Now one other game I want to bring up is the Detroit-Seattle game. Geno Smith, didn't he throw for like 113 yards or something?
Wasn't good.
Awful.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
I know one of my picks last week was that Seattle would cover the spread against the Rams. They did not because they lost. And they have an injured offensive lineman, and I just think that things aren't looking good for Seattle, but they are getting Devon Witherspoon back. He'll make his debut most likely in week 2. So him across from Tariq Woolen, I think, will really help shut down the already not so great receivers of Detroit, aside from Amon-Ra St. Brown. It'll be interesting to see if they do shadow the rookie on him. I think that'd be a very tall task for a rookie. But for those of you who don't know Devon Witherspoon, who's drafted 5th overall, he allowed 1 yard on 113 press coverage snaps last year in college. 1 yard. Unbelievable. He was perfect on press coverage, essentially. And he's one of the reasons I modified my grading system for scouting in this offseason, because I was going by 0.5s on a scale of 10. And he kept getting 10s. I was like, I can't have him. I give him a 10 for acceleration, press coverage, soft press, squat coverage, off, his hands, his anticipation. Ridiculous. His hips, his agility. So I think he's an excellent player. If they get him back, I think they'll do a lot for this defense. But the storyline is going to be, can this offense perform against a mediocre, I'm going to call it, Detroit defense? They proved that they can hang last week against the Chiefs, but it is TBD on how good they actually are. So how do you see this matchup playing out? I think it could end up being a high-scoring affair. It could also be low scoring based on the individual receiver cornerback matchups and how the lines will play against each other. That's why I don't bet on games like this, because you never know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it is the home opener for the Lions. And I know obviously Lions fans have had a lot of hype in the offseason and coming off a victory against the Chiefs. I think the Lions will take care of business. I know the line 5.5. I mean, I think it'll be close. I don't think the Lions are going to run away with it. But I do see the Lions probably pulling this one out. Another game that we didn't talk about, and, maybe I should make this a weekly thing. Last week, my dumpster fire game was the Broncos and the Raiders. This week, don't at me. I got the Colts and Texans probably as my dumpster fire game of the week. I will not be watching that. Although I did say I did like Richardson. He looked tantalizing a little bit, as a quarterback prospect. And the Texans, Stroud looked, like a rookie. I don't really care. I don't think either of these teams are going to be even sniffing the playoffs. So I will not be watching Colts Texans. Will you?
But the Colts Texans, it's always just unreasonably entertaining. Something always happens.
It'll be on Red Zone like the entire time, right?
Yeah. It's going to end up being a high-scoring game. Both rookies are going to be airing it out. It's going to look great. It's just weird things happen in Colts-Texans matchup. So I almost took the Texans as my upset pick just because of what they did over the last couple of years, but I couldn't do it.
It's Indy by what, a point, half a point? I mean, it's like really close, right? It's basically a pick. Yeah.
Now, I just want to touch on these other games that we haven't brought up. Now, about this week, it is a less exciting week for casual viewers, because there are 8 games with an over-under of 41 or lower, which is crazy. I mean, my low score quote cutoff is 42, because that's 21-21 ish. Each team scores about 3 touchdowns. And there's only one over 50, which is a Kansas City Jacksonville game.
Chiefs Jags. Yep.
So I think it's going to be a slower week. It's weird that they put 10 games on at 1 p.m. Eastern, and then only 3 at 4 p.m. And the 3 games at 4 p.m. average a 40 over under. And then the Monday night games are both below 40 over under. I mean, these are going to be some slugfests at night, and all the action is going to be coming to you at the same time at 1 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. I feel like a broadcaster now. Yeah. So I think Thursday tomorrow is going to be very exciting. I love the Eagles and Vikings. I believe Vikings were my pick to win the division. I think they are going to be a very good offense, and I think Jalen Hurts has a better week this week against pretty bad cornerbacks of the Vikings. So I think that's going to be fun, be a good fantasy game with, AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts, and Justin Jefferson all in this game. Should be a fun one. Definitely.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good one tomorrow. It's actually you can tell that Amazon Like I'm sure they were banging the table after last year, because we're all fans here, and the slate of Thursday games, they were pretty terrible. Now that first week did have the Chiefs and Chargers in week 2 to kick it off, which that was a great game. But then it was like every week was like the Jets, the Broncos, the Colts. Like it was rough watching. And that was when the Broncos were falling apart. And I just remember literally laughing at, what was it? It was like, I want to say it was like Cardinals. It was like the Cardinals and the Broncos or something last year.
Gosh.
It was literally like the worst football game. And it was so bad that like you could even say Al Michaels, he mailed it in, man. He was just like, he didn't even know what to talk about. It was so bad. Other than like talking about how bad Russ had regressed. So anyway, all that to say, this is a great way to kick off Thursday Night Football. I mean, this is a great matchup that I think you could have put in any slot. And so I think it's really solid. It shows that Amazon is really fighting for, I think, better games on Thursday. And then, sneak peek at week 3, you got the Niners and the Giants. The Giants, didn't look good in week 1, but that if they bounce back, that has the potential to be certainly an interesting matchup. So I think that's a good pick to kick off Thursday Night Football.
I definitely agree. Now, just a couple other games we haven't mentioned yet. The Bears Buccaneers. Start your Mike Evanses in fantasy this week. Baker loves him. And Baker's always thrown a good deep ball. I've always thought Baker was not a good quarterback. I've been on that side of the coin. Most people, I think, are right there with me. But he does throw a good deep ball. Mike Evans catches contested catches. It's just kind of what he does. And he catches touchdowns. And he should have had a second one, but he dropped it. And he still looks like Mike Evans. He's a monster physically. So, yeah, it should be a fun game to see if Justin Fields comes back. If I had to give you a dumpster fire game of the week, I might say this one, though, because I'm really not that interested in Tampa Bay. Aside from Mike Evans, just their defense is a little boring. Their offense they can't run the ball. It's just Sean Tucker needs to do things and soon to pass White in the depth chart. And then let's stop here on the Chiefs Jaguars for just a minute. Why don't you just give a quick overview of this one?
Yeah, I think this was. I was mentioning it a few minutes, I think, when you were rejoining as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to this game. It's a rematch of the AFC divisional round from last year, where Mahomes got hurt, didn't play, missed about the second quarter, and then came back and did finish the game. But yeah, I mean, I think that Calvin Ridley, it looked amazing. He looked like a stud in week 1, so that's obviously a big boost for the Jaguars offense, even though they barely used Christian Kirk. Like he seemed like his snap count was down. He wasn't out there a whole lot, but Ridley looked phenomenal. So kudos to them for having him. And I think he'll be a great fit for their offense. So I expect them to score some points. The Chiefs will have, or it's very likely that they will have both Jones and Kelce back. Might have snap counts for both of those guys. But obviously those are future Hall of Fame guys, probably, for sure for Kelce and probably for Jones. So having them out there in the field will really help the Chiefs. So I expect an entertaining game. I do think that we'll see some growth from the Chiefs wide receivers, and just having Kelce out there is going to, it's going to really, really, I think, put the juice back in the Chiefs offense, and they'll look a lot more like the Chiefs. So I do think it's going to be a great game. I do think the Chiefs will win, but I think it's close. I think it's a good test, a good early season test for both these teams. So I think it's KC by 3.5. I think that's about right. I think that's about right. So I do think we'll end up seeing the Chiefs win by somewhere around a field goal.
Now, Alex, what will you do if the Chiefs start the year 0-2?
I won't worry. I won't worry. I mean, certainly, fans is short for fanatics, so there'll certainly be some people, calling. But I mean, I think the coach that has the safest seat in the NFL is probably Andy Reid. The Chiefs could start 0-5, and there wouldn't even be the slightest amount of heat on his seat. I mean, he is so secure in that position that, and honestly, the Chiefs, I remember when the Chiefs, just a quick visit down memory lane. I remember when the Chiefs started 1-5. That was back in 2000 and 15. I think it was 2015. They started 1-5, and they were considered dead, and there had never been another 1-5 team to make the playoffs. And the Chiefs came roaring back, won 10 games in a row, and even won a playoff game. And so, they ripped off 10 in a row, finished the year 11-5. That was back with, kind of the Alex Smith and Jamal Charles iteration of the Chiefs in the early years with Andy Reid. So it has happened. Andy Reid is, he's cool headed. He doesn't get too up or down. So even if the Chiefs start 0-2, week 3, they have the Bears. So that's a good tune-up game. So I'm sure they're not going to start 0-3. So I wouldn't be too worried.
All right. And because as you said, Bears week 3. So not too worried. The only other games, 49ers, Rams. 49ers are going to slaughter the Rams. Even though the Rams won week 1, 49ers are just on another level.
The 49ers look like an absolute juggernaut, man. I was wrong. I mean, I know we talked about it. I said I was a little nervous about Purdy. He looked fine.
He looked great.
He looked fine. So, he doesn't have a strong arm, but he's accurate. And he's smart enough that he just knows, I just got to get the ball out of my hands quick and get it to these playmakers that are on the roster. They barely even use George Kittle, and like we said, you talked about Ayuk earlier. Yeah, he looked phenomenal. Amazing. Like Debo and Kittle were just kind of like hanging out because, McCaffrey and Ayuk did everything. So they look like an absolute juggernaut. I would expect them to destroy the Rams.
Yeah, Purdy was so good. He looked almost as good as Baker Mayfield and Jimmy Garoppolo. So
yeah, there you go.
Only other games, we touched on it briefly. Giants, Cardinals. I think when the Giants get ahead, it'll be a get right game, and they're going to keep playing a standard offense, running up the score to give Daniel Jones some of that confidence back. And then lastly, this is my dumpster fire game. Very clearly, the Saints and the Panthers. Because Bryce, I want to see him play. I want to see Bryce Young do well. He just was so putrid week 1. And the Saints do have a better defense than Atlanta, in my opinion, slightly. So I think it'll be a pretty bad game overall.
Yeah, neither of those teams. Yeah, neither of those teams excite me. I don't know. I mean, like Derek Carr. That doesn't really get me good. I just didn't get the juices flowing for the Saints.
Rashid Shaheed. Fun guy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and then like the Panthers, it's like clearly they don't expect to be good this year. This is just like hey, let's just kind of give Bryce Young some experience, and we'll end up with a top 10 pick, and maybe we can go get like Marvin Harrison Jr. or something. So they're already thinking ahead, I think. So I don't think I know we don't want to make overreactions, but I think that the Panthers look like a bottom 5 squad, certainly alongside the Cardinals. And then I'm thinking else. I mean, the Bears. I mean, those teams. Maybe the Texans. Those are probably like my early runners for those teams that might be picking in the top 5 right there.
Yeah, well, I have too many shares of Miles Sanders in fantasy, so I will probably be watching that game pretty closely. All right, Alex. Any closing thoughts?
No, it's been a lot of fun. A lot of fun, and it's fun to recap week 1 and talk about week 2, and kind of long term for everyone. We are recording this on Wednesday night, so this will be, of course, it's available right now on YouTube, and then we will have the audio available before the Thursday night game tomorrow. It'll be available sometime in the early afternoon, and then going forward, we'll probably be doing this show, our weekly show, probably on Tuesday nights, so we can get it posted on Wednesday with the audio. But we'll do it somewhere in there. It'll most likely be on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. But appreciate everybody joining us as always. Make sure that you like our show, subscribe to our show, give us that 5-star review. All that helps us to grow the show. And of course, you can send questions in. That's always available as well. And then I guess we'll also have still want to bring some fans on to maybe break some games down or talk about future ones. So it's been a fun week. I'm just glad to have football back. What about you, Cam? What do you want to close us out with?
Me too, man. As Alex just said, if you are a fan, reach out to us. We want to have you guys on. We'll probably bring someone on either next week or the week after. So make sure you tune into that. You can find us on YouTube, on Apple, Spotify, all that fun stuff. So thanks again for listening to our show. We're watching if you're on YouTube. Can't wait to watch the second week of football, and we'll be back to talk about week 3 next week. See you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.